Now, before I speak about this Bluetooth speaker in particular, a quick note about Bluetooth audio and Bluetooth speakers in general. From an audiophile point of view, Bluetooth and Bluetooth speakers are the worst possible way to listen to music. You're usually streaming the music over your chosen streaming service, Spotify, Tidal, whatever it might be, Apple Music. So the music's already compressed unless you're paying for one of the high-end lossless streaming options. And even then, some of them, they say they're lossless, they're not actually 100% lossless. But for most people, you've got your streaming service, you're streaming your music down compressed. Then you're recompressing it into one of the available Bluetooth codecs, of which there are many. You've got SBC, which is your that's your bottom of the barrel Bluetooth codec. It stands for sub-band codec, SBC. That's what every single Bluetooth speaker and mobile phone, laptop with Bluetooth supports. And then you start going up from there. Apple uses AAC, Advanced Audio Codec. That's not too bad. You've got aptX, which is from Qualcomm. That's kind of top of the tree with their adaptive aptX. You've got LDAC from Sony. You've got a new one, L3, which comes along with Bluetooth 5.2, I believe. There might be a Samsung codec, I can't quite remember now. But anyway, there's a few. They're not all equal, some are better than others. And even then, depending which ones you're using, your device may not still use the full bandwidth available for that chosen codec. So, in general, Bluetooth is a poor way, from an audiophile point of view, to listen to music. Every time I hear a Bluetooth speaker, I instantly cringe at the compression. And that is not because of the speaker necessarily itself, it's because it's over Bluetooth and being streamed from somewhere compressed in the first place. Anyway, with that said, what we're looking at today is the Tribit or Tribit Stormbox Lava. This is a Bluetooth speaker that claims 24 hours of battery life at 50% volume with the bass boost or X bass off. And it comes in this sort of quite commonly found form factor. It looks very similar to the JBL offerings. Now, I've had JBL Bluetooth speakers, Bose Bluetooth speakers, Sony Bluetooth speakers, and a couple of other brands as well. So I've had many Bluetooth speakers. And the build quality, the finish of this feels equally good to any of those. There's nothing particularly stand out about it, but it doesn't feel cheap, it doesn't feel nasty. There's a good weight to it, which of course you would expect considering the battery life and its claimed performance. We have two woofers here. They are 30 watts a piece, and then a pair of Silk Dome tweeters here, 10 watts a piece, totaling 80 watts. Presumably that's RMS. The specification on the website doesn't actually say. It's probably, yeah, it's got to be RMS. It can't be peak or it would sound absolutely awful, really quiet and distort really easily. Now, frequency response claimed 43 hertz on the low end, up to 20 kilohertz on the high end. This type of Bluetooth speaker is marketed, well, if you look at the box, you can see exactly the type of people it's marketed to. You know, younger generation, perhaps they're out in the skate park with their skateboards and their mates, perhaps they're having a barbecue at their friends, perhaps they're out in their garden, perhaps they're out in the street, sat in the middle of town on a bench, who knows where they are, perhaps they're in the school playground even, college, you know, common room or something, and they want to bring some sound with them and play music from their phone. So, not your typical audiophile type of, you know, customer they're aiming at here. What they want to see is long battery life, convenience, as in it isn't too big or too heavy. This weighs in at £5, which is about 2.5 kilos, 2.3 kilos, something like that. It's not too bad. So yeah, not too big and bulky, good battery life, volume, because what young person doesn't like a loudspeaker? Well, in fact, who doesn't like a loudspeaker? And typically lots of bass. And bass is where small speakers typically struggle as well. What we've got here, in addition to those two woofers, is a pair of passive drivers, one at each end. And I'll say, before we even get onto the quality of the sound, I'll say the low end response on this is quite a bit more than what I have found on some other Bluetooth speakers. It's not a balanced sound by any means. It's very bass heavy, even with the X bass feature turned off. But before we talk about audio quality any further, let's have a look at the unit itself. I mean, you can kind of see its form factor there as I've spun it round already. Little rubber foot on the bottom to keep it nice and stable. And then I've fitted this handle, which is like, it's almost like a little rope type handle, which I think looks particularly nice. It's got a little bit of give in it, a little bit of spring to it. I think that looks really quite nice. The other alternative it comes with is a longer shoulder strap, which is folded up here. In fact, you can see that fitted on the back of the box there. And that would allow you to sort of put it over your shoulder and it would hang down about waist height for the average sort of height person. If you're super tall, it of course will be higher up, and if you're very short, maybe it'll be down by your knees. But they're the two strap options. I like this one myself, but each to their own. Then what else do we have on the speaker? You've got your controls across the top. Now some of the middle three you're going to see really easily. Up and down on the volume and mute. And then to my left of that, there is the X bass button and a button that looks like an infinity symbol. What it actually does is put it in stereo mode so that you can use a pair of these as stereo speakers, one left, one right. On the opposing side, you've got your Bluetooth button for pairing and your power button. The only other things we have on here are behind the flap at the back. We have USB-C in for charging, USB-A out for charging things like mobile phones and tablets. You can use this as like a portable power bank. And then, thankfully, for me, because I can't stand Bluetooth, auxiliary in, 3.5mm jack. So those of us that do have a phone with a headphone socket in 2025, I have a Sony phone, so can plug it in. My phone supports almost all of the Bluetooth codecs. All the aptX formats, AAC, which is primarily used in Apple devices, so iPhone users will have AAC. Obviously it has SBC, it also has LDAC, and yeah, a 3.5mm out for uncompressed audio into my Bluetooth speaker, or portable speaker I should call it. If I call it a Bluetooth speaker, I'm doing it an injustice. It's a portable speaker because it has a 3.5mm input. Now, what else do you get? Oh, you get a USB-C charging cable, obviously. No power brick though, and you get a manual with it as well. Now, there is an accompanying app that allows you to update the firmware. May as well show you that now, mightn't I? Where's it going to put the shortcut? There. Tribit app. So you can log. I couldn't be bothered to make an account, so I'm logging in as a visitor. And then my device shows up as Tribit Stormbox Lava, of course. It's currently turned off, so let me turn it on. You'll probably have heard that. And it's showing where it started playing straight away. Let's just mute that and pause it in actual fact. There we go, it should be paused. Right, so yeah, 50% battery currently. If we go into the app, we've now got speaker, bottom left-hand corner, equalizer in the center, settings to the right. Speaker is much as it sounds. It shows you the speaker itself, your battery percentage, the volume, and your basic controls. Equalizer, I've had to set a custom EQ, which I've called flat, and it is just that. I've set it flat, because the preset EQs are, if we go to the top, X bass off, X bass on, tradition, audiobook, classical, rock, jazz, X bass off version 1.5.5 and X bass on version 1.5.5. Do not ask me the variations of those. I have no clue what it means. But there was no flat, so I have added a flat because I don't want any EQing. I want to hear the speakers, performing as they are with the internal amp as well. And then settings. We have your firmware version, which I updated literally 15 minutes ago, so that's the very latest. The device name, countdown to shutdown option. I imagine it, I haven't tried it, but I'm guessing it will give you a countdown before it auto powers off. EQ button, okay, that's a shortcut to change your EQ. Voice prompt, because it does have a built-in microphone for voice activated assistance and for hands-free calling should your phone ring whilst you're playing some music. auto shutdown after a period of time, manual shutdown button, firmware upgrade, factory reset, and delete the device. So they're the options in Tribit. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to play some music. Obviously, I'm using a sort of lapel mic here designed for vocals, really. That's what it's optimized for. So I'm going to play some music, first of all, over Bluetooth. This only supports SBC, so the absolutely bottom of the barrel, terrible Bluetooth codec, or AAC, which is your Apple one, which actually it's almost comparable to aptX, almost. So for Bluetooth, that's not bad. Obviously, if you're on an Android device like me, not all of them will support AAC. You might be stuck on SBC, so just something to, you know, check yourself with your phone to see what it supports. So let's play some music over Bluetooth. I'll point it towards me so you can hear it, and let's just open this up, ready to plug in my 3.5mm jack. Because what happens, I can't plug the 3.5mm in now because it auto switches over. If I plug it in, it'll make a little sound to acknowledge I've plugged it in and sever the Bluetooth connection and start playing over the 3.5mm. So we'll do Bluetooth first. Now this is, it's pointing at my mic. It's about 50% volume, flat EQ, no X bass. Right, so now let's plug in the 3.5mm. You should hear a confirmation. There it goes. There's no sort of visual confirmation, it just does it. And now on my phone, let's choose 3.5mm out, and I'll just rewind it a little bit and play that same bit again. Right, whether you'll be able to tell the difference or not over my lapel mic, which is a Rode Wireless Go, or not, I have no idea. But I thought this is the best way I can give you an example of Bluetooth versus a wired connection. Now, to my ears, it's really apparent, even though I'm using AAC, which is a relatively decent Bluetooth codec. And I'm not streaming, that's an uncompressed WAV file on my phone. So there's no compression from the source. I'm not streaming it over a service. Let me just turn this off. Press and hold to turn off, and it's a single press to turn on. Yeah, so obviously I've done lots of testing using various tracks of different genres. What I played there is just something that won't get me a copyright strike, just to demo it in the video. So yeah, fully uncompressed WAV, playing over a 3.5mm cable into the back versus the Bluetooth. As I say, I don't know whether this mic will pick it up well enough for you to be able to tell or not. And then what's going to happen is YouTube's going to compress the audio as part of this video, and then you're probably going to be watching it, streaming it on a phone or some other mobile device, listening to it out of laptop speakers, phone speakers, maybe some Bluetooth headphones, I'm going to guess, or earpods or something. So whether you'll be able to tell or not is I don't really know. The biggest audible differences between an uncompressed wired audio source and a compressed Bluetooth is in the mid-range and the high end, because that's where there is much more detail, and that's what gets lost when you compress audio. So if you can hear it, it's going to be in the higher end rather than the lower end. So overall speaker quality, ignoring Bluetooth, because that's going to be varied depending on where you're streaming from or playing the music from. Is it compressed? Is it uncompressed? What streaming service you're using? What bit rate are you paying for and playing it at? What codec are you connected using? And is your phone even using that codec to its fullest? Way too many variables, right? But testing speakers and amplify this in here, as it is directly wired, this is how you test speakers, right? I would say it is on par with So the JVC speaker that I had of the equivalent size to this, I forget exactly what model it is. But the bass on this is a little too, it's a bit boomy. They have achieved, because I think they actually advertise, they say something about having, they use the bass as a selling point somewhere. Oh, not on here, must be on their website. So it says it's got like explosive bass or something along those lines. And they've certainly achieved that. The bass is very, very, it's also waterproof and dust resistant, by the way. The bass is very, very high and very prominent, too boomy for my liking. It's very much not a flat response, it's very unbalanced. So that's why I haven't even got the X bass on. If I was to turn it on for this demo, I mean, I may as well just, shall I do that for you, just in case you want to have a listen? Again, whether you'll be able to actually tell or not, I don't know, but I may as well do it. So let's play it. I mean, bass isn't directional, but I'll point it at me anyway. So this is with it off. The bass pretty much stops now anyway. Oh no, there is some low bass still there. And on. So you probably will have heard the low frequency boost come and go as I turn that on and off. That X bass is useful when you're playing this at lower volumes, because when you play it at high volumes, if you overboost the bass, you'll get distortion. Now, the latest firmware actually addresses distortion at higher volumes. There'll be internal limiting. If you do turn this up above about 3/4, on the original firmware, I found there was noticeable distortion. Not just in the bass, but in the mid-range and the high end as well. It just sounded nasty. Since updating the firmware, that isn't the case anymore to the latest one, so that's good. But it's because they're applying limiting. So you can get more volume out of it. It will go louder without distorting. And again, we're targeting, you know, younger people, not audiophiles, people like myself who really value quality of sound, but people who want the convenience of long battery life in a relatively small form factor that goes loud and that has plenty of bass. I would say the optimum listening volume for this is somewhere between 50 and 60%. Because when you start getting beyond that, the bass starts being dialed back to allow the speaker to go louder without distorting. So, and then conversely, when you play it quieter, the bass can almost be that bit overwhelming, as I mentioned earlier. But as a young person that just wants to hear their music with plenty of bass and plenty of volume, it works absolutely fine. And as I say, it's kind of comparable to the JVC equivalent, although, well, I was about to say it's a little over EQ'd, but when you go in and set the EQ to flat and you turn the X bass off, it isn't anywhere near as bad. But then even high-end manufacturers like Bose, for example, they very much favour, pardon me, what I'm going to call lively sound. They will boost the bass and the high end. Almost, if you're old school like me, the smiley face EQ setting where you've gradually boosted your high end and your low end. So that's a good way to describe this. But over Bluetooth, you do lack proper, clear high end, because that is the part of the audio spectrum that gets compressed the most to save space, file size, and enable streaming uninterrupted at a reasonable bandwidth over Bluetooth. So, would I recommend the speaker? I don't really have any. I mean, as I say, Bluetooth speakers for me all sound terrible, but there's varying degrees of terrible. And when you plug this one in with a wire, which is how I would use it, it actually sounds okay. You know, yes, I've heard much, much cleaner sound from, you know, much more balanced speakers, but this isn't designed to be a balanced speaker. It's designed to give you plenty of bass, you know, for your typical electronic dance music, your house, your drum and bass, dubstep, if you still listen to dubstep, and music like that, you know. The mid-range, to be honest, it's the whole thing, the best way to describe the whole thing is it's fine. If you were to pay £800 for it, no, it'd be awful. If you were to pay £50 for it, I'd be really impressed. And at £129.99, I'm like, yeah, that's actually pretty decent. Because it is cheaper than, say, the JBL equivalent in this size and form factor, albeit the JBL goes 20 watts more. So I think you're pretty much getting what you pay for with this. So there will be a link in the description should you want to pick one up. And if you're old school like me, I would definitely recommend still using a 3.5mm line in to get the very best sound out of it. But if not, make sure your phone at least has the AAC codec. If you're an iPhone user, that's your default one, that's what you'll be using. Because otherwise you'll be doing yourself an injustice. Although, and this is not against you younger guys out there, the younger generation has been brought up with convenience over quality. So you're used to poor quality Bluetooth audio in whatever form that may come. You know, the youngsters walking down the street listening to their phone speakers for music, you know, literally phone on loudspeaker, not even any headphones or earphones in. So to you guys that have never experienced fully lossless, uncompressed, wired audio in any form, whether it be a home hi-fi, a decent set of wired headphones, or a boombox back in the day that had a good audio in, or a CD player in it, then you're not going to know. You're going to think this sounds amazing, so you're going to be more than happy with it. Anyway, enough of my waffle. As always, thank you very much for watching, and take it easy.